Okay, today I've got the Concerned Zulu on the line, and for easy practical reasons, I'm going to call him Mr. Z. And he is going to talk to us about that concept and construct of clever blacks and how they experience it and how they get what type of responses and resistance they get from their communities. Mr. Z, go for it.
Hi, Colleen. I thought you were going to call me Concerned Zulu, but I see you've changed my name. Great. But it's good to be back. So the term clever black, Colleen, is generally used in a cynical way on social media to refer to educated black people. But it's also used so much by the politicians, especially from the EFF and the ANC, to brand educated black people that oppose their narrative or that don't agree to their narrative. So it's really, I don't think any black person would like to be called a clever black right now because of the perception that name carries. I mean, if I can tell you, if you are called a clever black, there's a perception that you want to be white, or you've adopted a Western way of thinking. So that name, clever black, carries those kind of connotations. So personally, I don't like using it because of the kind of perception that it has created. There are other names as well that you find on social media, like 702 blacks, which is similar to clever blacks. It's kind of black that listen to Radio 702. So the politicians have done well to kind of brand the educated people as whites wanna be, and they create this division among the black race.
Can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
So if I make a statement that the label or the construct clever blacks is just as damaging to the black people as the connotation of a white racist is to a white guy. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think the politicians in general, they like to use also, things like racist if nothing else works, So similar to clever blacks, you're quite right. I think, instead of arguing the points and bring a sound argument, they like to brand you as a clever black to make you feel guilty, to make you feel like you're not black, to make you feel, they try to define what blackness is. If I adopt a particular narrative, suddenly I'm not an ordinary black. I'm a clever black. I want to be white, So that's the kind of narrative and perception they are creating. And as a result, a whole lot of, educated intellectuals, they don't want to enter a political space because of, being branded these kind of things. So clever black as a term, it is, I suppose, as bad, like you say. That being said, I recognize that in any society, there is a group of educated people. And I recognize that within the black society, there is a group of educated intellectuals and independent thinkers. And those thinkers need to actually shape the societies. Whether you call them clever blacks or not, I don't know. But certainly, I mean, you've been calling in your Skidmarks for clever blacks to stand up. I certainly, I wouldn't like to call them clever blacks. I just call them the much more educated black people to take bigger roles in society. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, the second question that you sent to me was, why are the so-called clever blacks quiet and not visible politically?
I think there's a number of things. I think, first of all, I think you are starting to see the so-called clever blacks, participating in politics. Privately, we were talking about the new political party, Rise Mzansi. If I look at Songezo Zibi, he's a bright guy. He's an intellectual. He's an independent thinker. He's somebody you can classify, and I'm using this term loosely, clever black. He's somebody you can classify as that. I mean, if I look at the leader of Arise, Paul Tagada, he's also another bright guy. So the problem that we are facing right now is that these guys are, they all open these little political parties instead of teaming up together and making or forming a strong movement. This is the problem that I have. I mean, there's lots of them. There's a lot of bright black guys that are out there. That should be challenging the politicians, but they work in silos. So my call would be to get all these guys together in some form of a think tank or a one political movement that we can all support and back. That's one part of it. But secondly, I mean, we can't deny the fact that a whole lot of so-called clever blacks are afraid of actually coming out publicly and criticize the likes of your ANC because of the consequences that they face if they do so. So it's even more important for the guys that are already in the political space to form this strong movement so we can see more so-called clever blacks coming out and supporting those kind of movements. So I think they are there, but they are working in silos. So we need to get them together.
Okay. The thing is this, you've got basically a similar situation, and I'm just going to talk about the Boere tribe. We have got a situation, the same sort of thing, where inside that tribe, there's a lot of splinter groups. I call them gangs, or Afrikaans bendes, and they are each pursuing a goal. But if you look at all of their goals collectively, they're basically pursuing the same thing.
Absolutely.
But then we have to accept the fact, Mr. Z, that is that Triple X, they are very clever and they're very cunning. And one of their big weapons is to create factions in society. Because while those factions are battling one another, they get away with whatever they think or plan or whatever. So your problem with the clever blacks being now splintered, we've got the same situation. And I agree 100% with you, and I will do whatever I can to help where I can. You just got to get them together into a think tank, basically. I was part of the AFSA group for a while, and there are some really clever intellectuals in there. And the first time I became aware of them was when they brought that report out of how they picked up the efficiency at that one coal power station from in the 50s up to in the 90s. And then that leader of the group published a paper on the uselessness of expanding the grid at that massive cost. But then what I saw is they started bringing in people into that group that were ideology driven and really not very clever. And with that, for me, they lost a lot of credibility, because you can never have real smart brains in the same group as a lot of ideologists, because ideologists, very little of their plans is actually based on facts. Whereas for the intellectuals, facts is the only thing that count. All right, let's get to the third point. What role can clever blacks play in the little towns where they come from?
This is the thing that bothers me quite a lot, and you and I have discussed it privately. First of all, a whole lot of so-called clever blacks are in bigger cities, and for obvious reasons. There is little to no business activity or economic activity in smaller towns. I mean, where I come from, the South Coast, and I once shared with you that the clothing industry down in the South Coast used to be so big. My mom and almost every woman in my family worked for a clothing firm down in Port Shepstone and in the Marburg area, but that industry is gone. So, you know, as a result, you know, a whole lot of people, you know, kids when they grow up, all they want to go to Johannesburg, they want to go to Durban, they want to go to Cape Town. So a whole lot of clever blacks, obviously, they are in bigger cities. What can be done? What can they do? I think they need to identify and open business opportunities where they come from. I think that's one thing that we need to do as so-called clever blacks. I don't know if I'm one, but we need to actually look back and identify opportunities. That's number one. And number two, we need to generally give back to our communities. I mean, I was reading a story of Magazole Mampimpi, a rugby player, who you know, gave 1 million rand to the school where he was for the school to be upgraded. I think those are kind of things that you know, the so-called clever blacks can do to their communities, to uplift their communities. Because I can tell you, Colleen, in the short term, if we are going to look at the ANC and the government to do things for us, we are in for a very, very big surprise. They're not going to do anything for us. We just have to accept that in the short term. And we, you know, I suppose educated Black people needs to go to our communities, identify business opportunities, invest there, give back to our communities. But thirdly, and most importantly, we need to educate our people politically. I mean, people, go ahead.
I agree with you on that. And I understand the principle of the clever blacks giving back to their communities by example and by helping them to establish small businesses and small farming operations, but establish these things along good, solid scientific lines and good, solid financial lines. What you have said is very true. The responsibility is on the clever blacks. They had the opportunity to be better educated, to plow that advantage back into their community, because that is where it is needed most. And I agree 100% with you. The ANC is going to drown, they're going to destroy the country. They have basically destroyed the government service. I said in a debate I was in last night, I said, a state, what gives a state the right to exist? A state has the right to exist if that state is standing on a solid, what is the correct word? Civil service. In other words, it provides safety, it provides health, it provides education, it provides control through home affairs, things like that. That gives a state the right to exist. What has happened in South Africa is that civil service has been destroyed. You name me one department, just name me one department that is still functioning.
I can't think of one, to be honest.
Exactly. And now that is dangerous. And this is what Gayton McKenzie showed with his stint going up to the border. I mean, a political party with a few volunteers trying to protect our northern border. How ridiculous is that? If you think about it, it is absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's get to point number 4. What are the black people on the ground saying about the new MK party?
Before I get to that point, I just wanted to say lastly on the last point that we need to educate our people politically. You know, I was back home for Christmas, and I was having a conversation with some of my friends there, and they told me that they've elected, or the community have elected, a guy that I happen to know to be a ward councillor. I mean, the guy has no education. The guy basically plays dice in the street corners, has absolutely no administration skills. But this is a guy that was elected by the community to represent them, right? So this is the kind of, scenario that we are facing, and that we need to go back and, kind of educate our people about the consequences of voting for people like that. I mean, I even asked the guys there, what are we expecting this guy to do in the next 4 years? The guy is going to screw everybody and, pocket as much as he can over the next 4 years. The guy has zero administration skills. So this is the kind of situations that we are facing, that, the more kind of educated people needs to go back and educate people to say, this is the consequence of voting for such people.
Vusi Tembakwayo, he did a talk. I used a snippet from him in one of my Skidmarks, in which he said, you vote for a guy that has never built anything in his life, and then he gets into that position, and then you are surprised that he's not building anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's right. I mean, that's the structural problem that we have, because these guys, they probably desperate. They haven't done anything in their lives. So they are going to loot as much as they can while they still, while they still hold that role. And they are going to make sure that they channel all the funds to where they can basically loot. So so it's a problem that we are facing, and I think your call to clever blacks, or to the much more educated crowd, I say we need to go back to our communities and educate our people politically, because it's just a desperate situation out there. But going back to the last question around the MK party, interestingly, in December, nobody was talking a lot about the MK party, at least in the South Coast. I think it's getting a lot of traction in Northern KwaZulu-Natal, but certainly there hasn't been any buzz around it where I was. But there was one thing that a friend of mine, it caught my attention. A friend of mine said, I probably should join an MK party because, I want a position. That got me thinking. I think if I look at social media and that statement, there's a lot of young people who want to join the MK party for positions, right? And I think it's the culture thing that we created in South Africa. Every time there's a new party, I think young people, the only thing that young people think about is, how can I get rich out of this particular party? So that is the main concern that I have. That people, anything that just comes up, they want to go there, basically to as a get rich kind of scheme. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Don't you think that there might be an opportunity for let's keep to the term clever blacks, to see if you can get any influence and traction in MK?
I think this man is tarnished. I mean, if I look at Zuma's reputation is tarnished, whether wrongly or rightly. I don't think a lot of the so-called clever blacks wants to be associated with that. I know that there were some rumors around the former Chief Justice joining the MK party, and I said I highly doubt that would be the case, because this is the man who's still undergoing some court cases, etc., etc. So I think, as I said, rightly or wrongly, this is an accused man. This is a man that has been accused of a whole lot of things. So I don't think any clever black international independent thinker would like to be associated with that party. Remains to be seen, though. I could be wrong.
Okay. Now, from what I see, it doesn't look to me like Jacob Zuma is pushing for the top position in the party. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose we can fool ourselves and say he's not looking for a top position, but ultimately it's his brainchild, right? And And there is that perception, at least, that regardless, he'll be calling the shots, or his children, certainly the daughter, will be calling the shots in that political party. So whether Zuma is in a top position or not, I think is neither here nor there, because I think ultimately in the background, he and his children will be calling the shots. That's just my view.
Okay, that I will agree with. He will have a strong influence, but I'm getting the idea that he's not pushing for himself to be in the top position. But all right, that is speculation. The other thing that I am looking at when I look at MK is, for me, I get the feeling that their focus is on Natal. Am I wrong?
Initially, it was thought that the focus is going to be in Natal, but I see now their manifesto is going to be somewhere in Mpumalanga, if I'm not mistaken. So it does look like they are making headway in other provinces. How much traction they will get in and outside KwaZulu-Natal remains to be seen, but it does look like Zuma is making headway in other provinces like Mpumalanga and Limpopo. But certainly he's rattling the ANC. I mean, you and I were talking about it before we came online. We were talking about the fact that everybody seems to be running crazy within the ANC. Everybody's in a panic mode. So certainly from that perspective, I think Zuma is rattling the ANC big time. Whether it's going to get traction all over the country, we just have to watch. The next month is going to be very, very interesting.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Z, now for the last point. What are the black people saying about the upcoming elections?
One of the most encouraging thing that I took out of the conversations that I've had while I was on holiday down the South Coast is the fact that a lot of people seem to know for sure they're not going to vote for the ANC. Certainly my family, which is my family is traditionally ANC, right? And not even one member of my family said they were going to vote for the ANC. But where I'm still stuck, and I think everyone in the country is still stuck, is who do they vote for, That's the idea that I got, that they're not going to vote for the ANC, but they're not 100% sure who to vote for at this particular stage. And I think a whole lot of South Africans will relate to this. I think you and I have spoken about this before. I'm not 100% sure at this point. I'm still weighing my options around who to vote for. So that's the general sense that I got, that people are really, really annoyed. They don't want the ANC anymore. However, I take that with a pinch of salt, Colleen, because it has happened before where people are hurtful of the ANC, but come election day, when they get to that election booth, they vote for the ANC. So that kind of encouraged me to hear people saying they're not going to vote for the ANC, but I'm skeptical. I'm not too sure whether when the rubber hits the road, whether they will do that.
I think that in my tribe as well, people are not sure where to vote. Traditionally, we were voting for the Freedom Front Plus, but things has come into the open about that party. It is making the voters uncomfortable with the party. And there is now a drive on the 2nd of February. They will have a gathering at the Freedom Front Plus offices in Centurion. We have labeled it as the Battle of Centurion, in which the voters are saying to that management in the Freedom Front Plus, we've had enough of it. We are not happy with what you're doing and what you have not done in the past 30 years. It's time for a change. Now, for me, it's important, the concept and the principle is important. Voters has been blossomed into a position over the past 30 years that politicians are not our representatives anymore. They have become our rulers. And that is a thing that must go, because those people that you vote for, they're supposed to stand up in parliament and represent you, and they're not doing it. They are sitting there executing commands from their bosses, and they don't give a shit about the people. So there is things happening. If the Battle of Centurion should get positive results, I think it might make a change in a few political parties in South Africa, because I've already seen this morning, there's now Helen Must Go is trending on Twitter. So it seems to me that even in the DA, there are now rebels in the DA that say, hey, clean this pigsty. We better clean this pigsty. And that will happen. I mean, if you look at what happened to the EFF in the past, say, 3 months, a number of educated people has joined that party officially. And I said to a guy the other night in a debate, does Malema really think that those intellectuals that has now got into the EFF is going to be happy to take instructions from him, because they know he's a windbag? So I personally think that we might see a palace revolt in the EFF. And I also are picking up signs that it looks like other parties are now also beginning to look around and say, with these oaks that has been sitting in these chairs for the past 30 years, what the hell have they really achieved for us?
Yeah.
And that question that is now people are beginning to ask it. And I can hear among the black people, the few that I have contact with, and so they see the same thing. The voters are beginning to ask now, okay, you said you're going to do that, but look at this. Look where we are now. Home affairs not working, hospitals not working, railways not working, police not working, SASSA not working. What have you done?
Yeah, we just have to wait and see. While you were talking, I got load shedded thanks to the ANC. So I caught the last bit of our last segment. So this is what we're facing in South Africa.
Mr. Z, I want to say thank you. It was great talking to you, and we're going to have some more talks on this. And from my side, if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to ask. And I hope that my Skidmarks are giving you some inspiration on certain of your missions.
Certainly. I think your Skidmarks, I follow your Skidmarks, and I've said this time and time again that there are things that I agree with and there are things that I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, I get your frustrations, and I get where you're coming from with a whole lot of things that you are saying. My objective is to, I share your Skidmarks to a whole lot of my friends, and you know that. And I want us to have an engagement, so that in the long term we form alliances, because Colleen, at the end of the day, we are fighting the same evil. Yep. We are fighting the people that are destroying our country. So whether you're a Boere, I'm a black guy, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We are fighting the same enemy that is destroying our country. So my objective is to listen. After all, it's not going to be good if we agree all the time. We need to debate these things, but ultimately we need to form alliances to fight this monster that is destroying our country. So yeah, I
agree 100% with you on that one, Mr. Z. And I've been talking a lot about that, and I also get some resistance from my tribe about it and so forth. And there are people that are suspicious and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, the reality is, we're all fighting the same enemy. And if we lose this fight, we're gone.
Absolutely.
Because they have published it. They want to wipe us out.
But thank you very much. Hope we will have another discussion in the near future.
It will be great, and have a great day and enjoy their moments in the darkness there.
Thank you.